Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to Lesson 9 in this RTS tutorial series in Unreal Engine 5. In this video, we'll be setting up our game clock and calendar. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors, and you too can help this channel out, and all you have to do is hit that like button down below. It really does help the channel as it impacts on the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to take your support a bit further, then hit the subscribe and notify icon. And if you have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month and you want to help the channel even more, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors get early access to content, and at upper tiers, get access to completed and ongoing projects that I'm doing on YouTube. Okay, open up your projects and we'll make a start. Alright, so here we are back inside the editor. And for our game time, sorry, I have the library open. We don't need that. Let's go to our core, go to settings, and in our settings folder, we're going to add a new blueprint class in. So right click, select blueprint class, and we are looking for our game state. So we can't see it up here, right? We have game mode, actor component, scene component, character, etc., etc. So go to all classes, and in here, let's say put in game state. Now we have game state base and game state. Now for us, we're gonna start with base. If we need to reparent this later on, then we'll go to game state. Now game state base is missing some stuff that we might want in game state, but we're not gonna worry about that too much. This will be BP game state. Okay, so first thing, let's just make sure to save that. So before we go forward, we're going to go to our game mode, and in our game mode, we're going to find game state here. And we're just going to set this to our BP game state. And just make sure it's the right one. It is. Go ahead and compile that. That way it's all ready for us in the next few minutes. So let's go ahead and pop open our game state. Now we don't need the viewport, so let's go over to our event graph. Now usually what I like to do, as many people probably are aware from my earlier videos, is I like to do my variables as we need them. However, we're going to talk about one of them really quickly, and then we're going to set up a bunch of variables around it. So we already know one we need. We need game speed. We also know we need game time. We get delta time from here, by the way. And we know that from the last video. So let's go ahead and just create those because we know we need them. So I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to do game speed. And this is of type float, of course. And we're going to put this in the category game speed settings. All right, I'm going to then duplicate that just so I don't have to worry about the category, and I'm going to do default game speed. So that's a new one, and we're just using that as a check. And then we need one called game time. And now I mentioned there's a variable I want to discuss with you, so I'm going to duplicate it one more time to create this variable, and I'm going to call this our date time struct. Now in the last series I created an array. In fact, actually I did it incorrectly because I meant to have 6 elements in. I plugged them all into the same 3 twice, 2 for each. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. I made a mistake. But a lot of people ask me why I created my own array instead of using the built-in one. And the irony of that statement to me was that I was aware of the class and people were saying, oh, are you not aware of this? And the evidence that I was aware of it was I was actually using elements from that class elsewhere in the code. I just wasn't using the structure they give you. In this video, just because the structure makes things a little bit easier, we are going to use that structure. And that structure is our variable type, and it's called date time. There we go, compile. By the way, sorry for the slight jump there. There was a recording issue, so that was already there, I realized. So there is our date and time. So we have our year and our clock. But this is a bit messy to deal with. But before we get there, let's just take this out for a moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to make, or actually let's break this just so we can see it. So we have a whole bunch of things in here. We actually don't need to set all of these. In fact, we're only going to be setting down to the second. We don't need to worry about our milliseconds. Now for this, what we're going to need is we're going to need some variables. We need our year, our month, our day, and hours, minutes, and seconds. And these are all integers. So let's go ahead and very quickly create 3 of them. So we're going to start with our year, and the reason I'm doing that is just because it's in the order of which it shows in the date time structure, and this is going to be an integer, and I am going to put this in a category called calendar. And just like the last series, I'm going to pick my recording year, and date for what we're doing here. So currently it is April 20th, 2022. So I'm gonna add 2022 in there. I'm going to duplicate this again, and this will be month. I said again, even though that's the first time I'm duplicating that one. I'm going to duplicate month, and this will be day. And I'm going to create one more called day counter. Now, day counter is a thing that we saw in the last video. All right, so for month, because it's April, it's 04. And because it's the 20th, for day, it is 20. For our day counter, default this out to 0. Actually, I lied. Default this out to 1. Next, we're going to have our hours. So let me just duplicate that, and we'll do hours. And we'll change this from calendar to clock. We'll duplicate that, and this will be our minutes, and then finally our seconds. All right, let's compile and set our defaults. Currently, it is 12:46. I'm going to do 12 for my hour, 46 for my minutes, and for time, I'm just going to do 45. All right, now what we need to do is we need to convert these values of year, day, month, hours, seconds, minutes into something that can work with our system. So the first part is our game time. Our game time doesn't actually care about what day it is. That's why we have the day counter. It only cares about the actual time. So we're going to take our game time and we're going to set it on our begin play. We're actually going to collapse this down to a function. So to set this, what we're going to do is we're going to combine our hour, minutes, and seconds. So to do that, we're going to do float plus float. So that's going to be a hard habit for me breaking, saying float plus float when we can literally plug anything into these. And we're going to get our seconds. Start right there. Our seconds, we are going to divide this by a float value. In fact, actually, I'm just going to plug the division into there to begin with. And then I'm going to plug the seconds to the top there. And see how it auto converts? You can see the pin colors have changed. So that's a darker green versus our more neon green or a more bland green. And we're going to divide by 3,600. Now, why are we doing 3,600? Well, there are 3,600 seconds in an hour. That's why. There are 60 seconds in a minute, and there are 60 minutes in an hour. 60 times 60 is 3,600. Thus that number. All right, so that's our seconds done. As for our hours, or as for our minutes, let's do our minutes next. Let's just grab minutes. Let's duplicate this over here. Let's plug this into the second value here. Plug minutes into the top there. Notice it automatically converts. And again, notice that color change. What we are going to do here is we are going to divide by 60. Why? Because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So if you haven't worked this out, game time is really what hour is it, with our minutes and seconds as the floating points after the hour, which makes hours really easy. All we're going to do is take hours and plug it directly into there. And now we have our default game time, or our initial game time. So we're going to collapse this down to a function called set initial game time. All right, this function will go into our game speed settings. So game speed settings. There we go. And next what we're going to do is, well, worry about what comes after here in the next video, which is going to be our day-night cycle stuff. So we're going to go down to our tick, and we are going to run our game time on our tick. And the reason we're using our tick here is because, well, game time is going to update every frame, and we're going to use our delta seconds to influence it. But we want to only do this when the game isn't paused. That way we're not wasting resources on doing all the calculations. We are going to waste resources on checking if it's paused or not, though, every tick. But hey, it's less of a hassle than checking, and then doing all the math. So we're going to get our game speed, which we need to set a default for still. So let's set our default to 60, just like we did in the last video. For our default game speed, we will also do 60 because they should be the same. Our game time, we won't touch, and our date structure, we won't touch. We'll deal with all that in a little bit. We're going to take our game speed and we're going to make sure this is not equal to 0. So if it's not equal to 0, then we are not paused. If it is equal to 0, then we are paused. So from there, what we're going to do is we are going to calculate our game time. And I'm going to actually do that as a separate function down here. And we're just going to create a bunch of functions that we end up calling as one group. So this will be calculate time. And this is going to take in one value of delta time. So that's going to be of type float. And in here, what we're going to do is we are going to get our calculate game time from our BP game time library in the last video. We are going to take our game speed and pass that into our speed, and our game time, and of course pass that into our game time. There we go. So we are now updating our game time using our game speed and our delta time. We are then going to take our game time and we are, see, there's that typo that I was complaining about with regards to the fact my E sometimes sticks. Okay, we are going to set the new game time off of this. So then that value is what goes into here, updates again, updates here, comes back through, the updated value gets updated yet again, and so on. And then we will set our day counter on our day counter here. That is all this one is going to do. So with that done, we have finished out that function. In fact, you can collapse this down to a function if you want. I'm just going to leave it exposed so it's easier to see. After that, what we need to do is we need to calculate our, or set our clock and our calendar. So we're going to do another custom event, and this will be set clock calendar. All right, this one doesn't take in any arguments, but I'm going to be fair that this is actually going to be two separate functions. We're going to do them out and then we'll collapse them down. So we're going to set our seconds first. And how do we set our seconds? Well, we undo everything we did in the set initial game time. So we are going to take our game time. We are going to then convert it into seconds, because remember, it's currently in hours. So to convert it into seconds, we multiply it by 3600. There we go. We have our seconds, but our hours are also in there along with our minutes. So we're going to do a division with a whole and remainder, and we are going to divide by 60 because there are 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute. And we take the remainder and we're going to do floor, and we're going to pass that into our seconds. The return value, whatever is left over after that 60, so this is actually, we're dividing by minutes, is our minutes and hours. So we're going to then, going to take our minutes and set them here. So I'm just going to comment out this little part really quickly of this sets seconds. And I clearly missed the C in the word seconds there. And what we're doing here is our initial conversion. And we're converting it over into seconds from our game time, which is in hours. So we're going to take this value here, and this return value, and we're going to divide it again. We are going to divide it by 60 because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So that is our divider. Hey, that one actually still has that pin. Cool. And we are going to do a floor. By the way, I said I have a prep file. It's actually C++ code I'm looking at for my prep file. And we're passing that into there because whatever is the remainder after 60 is the minutes. And the return value here is just our hours. So we're going to set that hours next. And just, comment this bit out. This sets minutes. And just to be on the safe side, we'll do another division, whole and remainder, and we're going to plug that into the return value there. And I just want to line all of those pins up, not this bottom one here. And we'll do another floor. I wonder if I'll add no, I don't want to truncate. I wanted a floor. And what we're going to divide here is 24 because there are 24 hours in a day. So this sets hours. There's that glitch again. Okay, so this is our clock right here. We've just done our clock. Now we need to do our calendar. All right, so for our calendar, we are going to set our day first. And for our day, all we're going to do is we are going to add our day counter to our current day. So remember, our day counter defaults to 1, but it will very quickly be set to 0 until we switch days. Once we switch days, then we set this, then this will increment to 1 or change to 1, and we add that to our current day. So it then in the next tick goes to 0, and then we add this in, nothing changes. So what we want to do now is check, well, where we're at in the month. We're going to do a branch. And remember earlier how I said, make sure to pull off the false. This is the bit where if you skip doing the false, your clock will update, but your calendar won't. So what is our condition here? Well, we want to know, well, how many days are there in a month? So let's do days in month. By the way, this function comes from the same class as this date time structure. All right, so we have a year value we can plug in, and we have a month value we can plug in. So we're going to take the years and the month to get how many days there should be here. So what we're going to do is we're going to check, is this value greater than the value coming from here? So in April, there are 30 days. And in this check, if this comes out to be 31 and goes, hey, I have 31 days, that's greater than 30, we are going to reset our day back to 1 because it is now a new calendar month. And if it is, well, then we also need to set our month. So we do that by taking our month and adding to it a value of 1. Now we could technically increment it, but I actually prefer for this one using add and just adding 1 in. I have weird personal reasons for that. Usually I'm the type of person who wants to use increments, but for this, yeah. And then we're gonna have another branch. Okay, now before we go any farther forward, I'm putting a reroute in here and pulling off the false and plugging into that reroute because we can change days without changing months. You know, there are 31 days or 30 days in April. Currently it's the 20th. Tomorrow is the 21st. I don't need to change the month on the 21st. It's still April. So next what we're gonna do is we're gonna check, is our month, because we've updated it here, greater than 12. If it is greater than 12, then, well, hey, we're in a new year. So let's do our check. Is it greater than 12? Plug that into there. There we go. And if it is a new year, well, we're going to want to change our month. We've already changed our year. Sorry, we've already changed our day. And we also want to change our year. So we're going to plug in year. And then we will, just like before, do a plus or an add. Again, you could do increment. I have my own weird personal reasons for preferring doing the add on this one. All right. And then finally, we have our return. Well, we don't have a return node yet because we're in our main graph. Also, I clearly forgot to plug that in. So let me just double check. Yep, that's all right. So let's just grab all of this. Actually, hang on. Let me just comment this out as calendar. All right, now I'm going to move this to the right so it's a bit smaller. Let's take all these nodes, right click, collapse to function, and this will be set clock calendar. And I'm just going to set this into a category called game time. Apparently the function name did not stick. Interesting. So this should be set clock calendar. So the name didn't sync because that's what I've used here. Sorry, in my prep file, because it's replicated, I have ROS in front of the function, or sorry, in front of the event, and the function just has that name, or has the name set clock calendar. So we'll do this as update clock calendar. Okay, let's pop this open because we're not done here. Let's just line that up. And let's go to the end here, and we're going to do a return node. All right, so very quickly, before we go any farther forward, off the false, because we can update month without changing year, we are going to do that. All right, now if you want to have an alien calendar with an alien number of months, you change that number out. If you want to have an alien number of days in a month, you change this to whatever you need it to be. For our return, we're going to pass out year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, in that order. So we're going to take year, and we're going to pass that out. Now we're going to then do month and do the same. And I'm just going to hold my control key down when I do this so I don't have to deal with that. Day. And then we have hours, minutes, seconds. So let's just line these up. Doesn't really matter too much for this one. So hours, minutes, and then finally seconds. Okay, let's line that up really quickly. And then let's pop back over to our event graph. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to set our date time structure. So what we're going to do is take our date time structure. We are going to just set it there, and then we're going to pull off of here and make date time. That's really annoying, that weird error I have with that E key, but hey, it's my issue. We pass in year, month, day, hours, minutes, and seconds. We don't need to worry about milliseconds. We're just going to collapse this down to set date time. So set date time, and we're going to just call this date time, set date time struct. Now, just to make things a little bit more efficient, let's just make sure these are all pass by reference. We don't need to copy over the data we are just going to pass the actual value in without any default so that we aren't, just wasting extra computational space. All right, really? That is pretty much us done outside of implementing it. But to make life a tiny bit easier, what we are going to do is we're going to just very quickly create a debug thing. So we're going to do a print string. And off this print string, we're going to leave it at the default of 2 seconds with blue text. We'll do print to log and print to screen if you want. I mean, I'm wanting it on screen. You don't really need it in the log. For our in string, we will do append, and we are going to need down to K. So let's just keep going until we see K. And there we go. And B will be a colon. D will be a colon. F will be a bunch of spaces. Actually, I'm going to do 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. H will be a stroke, and J will be a stroke. Now, if you're wondering how I know what each of those are, I've done this enough that I know what the order these go in are. So we will actually, to make life easier, we will take hour, pass that into there, minute, pass it into there, then we'll take seconds and pass it into there. For F, we put nothing in. For G, we do our day, because I am using a European calendar. If you want an American one, that's month instead. For I, we do month. If you want an American calendar, that should be day instead then. And then year. Okay, so let's just take all these new nodes, minus that one. And let's collapse this down to a function called debugging print game time. That's all this is. And this should be hour, minute. These all should again be passed by reference. Second, day, month, and year. Again, passed by reference, just so things are a bit more performant. And like I said, it is a minor thing, but important. Okay, so hey, we are nearly done. Final bit we're going to do is we are going to create we're going to just call these 3 things up we're going to call these 2 functions up on our tick. So what we'll do for there is we are going to do our calculate time, and we're going to pass in for our delta time our delta seconds here. And I'm just going to put a couple of reroutes in to make this a little bit easier to read. So let me put the second one in. That would be ever so lovely. And then after that, we're going to do our set clock calendar. So we first do this one, and then we do the second functions we created. And then we first do this one, and then we do the second set of functions we've created. All right, apologies for any jump on where we're at in the screen. For some reason, the engine crashed when I switched over to the camera and added this place actors back in. By the way, if you want that place actors, go to Windows, place actors, and you get it. I usually have it open because I like it. All right, so I'm just going to go to my window really quickly here, and we are going to look for our output log. And you can see that, it does work already because there's an earlier test. If I hit play, well, we can see our game time. So let me just hit pause real quick, and you can tell, hey, that our game time is going up. So let's start at the very beginning here. It was 51 minutes at the start, and we're now at 52 minutes. Now I'm gonna hit play again, and I'm gonna hit the tilde key, and in here I'm gonna type in slow-mo, and then I'm going to put the number 5 in. This is going to increase our game time. So I'm just gonna let it run for a few minutes. You can already see we've gone to 1 o'clock, and I'm just gonna make sure that this increments to the 21st. So I'm going to pause the video here, and I'll resume when we're at about 23:45. Okay, here we are, and let's see where it goes. And there we go. It got to the 21st. If I hit pause, you can see it's still past midnight. 18 minutes passed. It is now 21. We scroll all the way up. Let me just make it so it doesn't make that noise as I scroll. And we can see that it's still 21 here because we're still at midnight. All right. And then right before, hey, it converts over at the last second. Now, I've been asked numerous times because the math for what we're doing earlier in the game time library, well, you'll never actually reach 24. It does it right before 24. There's when it actually converts over. It converts over at the last second of the day. And notice then it skips a second the next day. In fact, actually notice it always is jumping by 2 to 3 seconds. But that's neither here nor there. It is steady between them if you actually work it out. Now, I realize, hey, I said I'm not going to use the console, and yet here we are. Now, one thing you might want to consider in terms of the test is we're actually testing this. We're testing what we're doing here. you might want to change this to say get your datetime structure here, break it, and then pass these values in instead, because this is what we're going to actually be passing to do our UMG. So I would recommend doing that to make sure this actually works, or sorry, that this entire system works, by plugging it into here instead of just passing in the information from the earlier function, because that's not what we're going to be passing to our UMGs. That's not what we're going to be passing to other parts of this project. All right, so what we have to do in the next video is we're going to set up our day-night cycle, and we're going to use both this class, our game state, and an actor we'll create for that. In addition, then we need to set up our UMG widgets and pass the information from our UMG widgets over, or from our game state to our UMG widgets and vice versa, to give the players control over if they pause the game or not, or slow the game down, or speed it up. But hey, our clock is now working, and that takes us through everything we wanted to do in this video. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button down below, and if you've not already, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon so you know when the next video is out. And if you want to take your support a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing projects, and at other tiers get access once a project is completed. Alright, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.